This was so disappointing. Like many, I have been waiting for this to come out for so long. The hype was there. The first book was amazing, had such a great setup for this, was such a great first book and introduction to a series. And this felt disjointed, lacked editing, lacked character development. The plot didn't plot. It took me longer to finish this book than it has taken me to finish any book in 3 years. From the first chapter, I was like, am I going to be able to get through more than one chapter per sitting? For the most part, I've heard everyone say the same thing. I want to say I've maybe seen like one or two creators not say the same. And I feel like with what I've heard, they've kind of harped on the ending. And yes, it was a good cliffhanger, but does a good cliffhanger make up for a 660-page drag? If you love this, I mean no offense to you, this may not be the video for you. Some specific gripes that I had, and I have this with plenty of fantasy books. If you are not willing to keep a character dead, you cannot resurrect a character. I love Archer, he should have stayed dead. I loved Onyx, he should have stayed dead. You can use resurrection if you're willing to kill off other characters. If everyone is resurrected, it's cheap. The time jump from the first book to the second book was like weeks, maybe? I think it was maybe even just like a week. And the change in Fisher and Sarris's relationship was so unrealistic. There was no banter in this book. There was no tension in this book. It's like we go from the first book where Sarris finds out they're mates. She's a little mad she didn't know at first, and then she accepts it. She's excited about it. We go through this whole ordeal, and all of a sudden they're like a solid couple, despite the fact that it's been a week. They still barely know each other. They have spent no time figuring out what the dynamic will be in their relationship. Just all of a sudden, it's like forever. And I understand that that's something that often happens with fated mates, but if that's your excuse for it being that way, that's lazy writing. I feel like we didn't really get any character development from Sarris. Like with the whole queen thing, there were moments where she acted queenly, and then there were moments where it was like she didn't even want to be queen, and the transition from one to the other I didn't feel was clear. And then killing off the blood court as quickly as that happened, it felt like what was even the point of the blood court? Like we didn't get much use out of it. I don't think that that was well executed. Why have we not heard any more in this one about the change in the Quicksilver in Fisher? Part of the end of the last book was that Ishabel and Taylana now know how to slowly fix it and get it out of Fisher. And in this book, we heard nothing about that. And that was kind of like a major theme of the first book, how he is being driven mad by this thing. And now all of a sudden, after a week, despite the fact that this is supposed to be a long process, he's kind of okay throughout this entire book. This one's kind of a personal gripe, but I have heard a lot of people say the same thing. Sarris and Fisher were only together for like the final half of the book. For the first half, they weren't together at all. And I do know that Callie said that the first book would be much more romance heavy, second and third would be much more lore heavy. But I feel that the key relationship in the book was neglected. And not only was it neglected, but I feel like we were then supposed to be distracted and forget about that with really spicy sex scenes. And it also felt that the relationship in this one only really was about sex. Like they were just kind of obsessed with each other and lusting over each other. It was all a bunch of tell, don't show. Like, where is a scenario where I get to see you two admire each other? One time, Sarris is fighting off a bunch of people and Fisher's admiring her. Okay, that's also like 70% into the book. Another one that is totally a personal gripe, and I just don't feel like there's a way that this can be done well, but once Sarris found out his true name and she just went straight into calling him that, I literally went like, every time I read it on the page, I think that's such a hard thing to do, because if you find out the true name and you don't call him that, then some readers aren't going to be happy. If you find out the true name and you do call him that, some readers aren't going to be happy. I just wish there was at least like a conversation of like, I feel I should call you this now, or I just like some kind of verbal acknowledgement of it versus just straight up and then going into a nickname for it. Ugh, God, I hated that. I feel like this book really badly fell into the like second book in a series slump thing, where your first book, it has to set things up in a certain way. It also has to have a certain amount of closure to where while people are waiting for the second one, there is a sense of satisfaction with that first one. And then with the second book, there is the danger of it falling into just being a bunch of setup for the third one. And I feel like that is exactly what this was. I think there were too many questions left unanswered or opened up. There wasn't enough closure. It didn't stand well on its own. And I also understand that when it's an incompleted series, we do have the tendency to hate on books a little bit before we know how it all turns out. But like, we have to be able to judge books for a book on its own not just a book within the context of the series. And this on its own lacked a lot. I am not positive if I will be finishing this series because there is so much ground that needs to be made up with how this thing set things up that I don't know if it can be done well. So I think we have until November. There's time to decide. But the reality is, with how big everyone's TBRs are nowadays, some things just get put on the back burner, and the third in the series might end up being that way for me. This was a very disappointing read.